Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us at the Blind Banter podcast. My name is Lorne, and I'm here with my co-host as usual, Carlos. Hey, Carlos, how are you doing tonight?
Not too bad. So I was sitting here on a Friday night, as usual with you, talking to you, and I was thinking about what I usually would do on Friday nights before the pandemic started and I was back on campus. And that made me really think about, college life and blind people and how we go through college life. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it, and I'm sure you can contribute as well, but just talk a little bit about just some general tips I have and how I do college life with a guide dog and especially the nightlife, because I've gotten plenty of questions from other students who are visually impaired on campus who want me to tell them a little bit about how it is that I do this. So I figured we should go through a little bit about just nightlife as well as college life and everything in between. So first, I'll talk a little bit about college life. I think the biggest thing in life in general, whether that be you're in college, you graduated, whatever it is, you're in high school, the biggest thing is to have some kind of routine, okay? And that's kind of what I'm learning now as I, do this virtual semester, never before seen semester, is to have some kind of routine where every morning, wake up at, at this time, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, then you do this, right? So when I was in college, that's kind of how I had my routine structured 5 days a week. During the weekdays, I would usually wake up around 5:30 or 6. I'd go work out. Then I'd come back around 8:30 or 7:30 rather. And then I'd take a shower, go to class around 8:30, take classes, and then just go on with my day that way, right? And just also on a side note, working out in the morning is great because there's not a lot of people there. And if you're like me, you're totally blind and you struggle to find empty machines and, keep your eye on them to make sure that whenever they empty up, somebody else doesn't take them right before you do. It's definitely a great time in the morning because it's, no one's there. And by the time you're done is when everyone starts filtering in. So that's good. But the biggest thing for me is to have a routine. And I think that this still applies despite the fact that there is a quarantine. Now, Lauren, do you have a routine or how is it that you do your life? Is it a little bit different?
Yeah, so I never actually was on campus to live. So I was always kind of showing up at my first class and then doing the studying that I had to do and being with the groups that I had to deal with, and then going either back to work or going back home. So I would always go at least 35 to 40 minutes early, just make sure that you can get through the buildings that you need to do. And I always found that it's always good to be early because the problem is there's no seating charts. So if you ever really wanted to, and for some odd reason, people really love to go to the back of the rooms, and maybe to sleep or to do whatever they want, right? So for me to be able to fit a guide dog in somewhere where he or she's not going to be stepped all over, I really needed to be in that class earlier than normal so that I can make sure that I would get the back corner. Depending on what type of class I was in and the people, sometimes they would be nice enough and know, okay, he actually has a legitimate reason, so we'll always keep the corner empty for him, which was really nice. But for the most part, people would just run there and grab it because they could, put their head against the wall and go to sleep. So that's why I always had to try to be early, and I couldn't necessarily do as much as I wanted to, just on the fear of not being able to find a proper seat.
See, it's funny because I am also very early and much for the same reason, but at Penn, everyone tries to get up at the front. So it's quite the opposite, where everyone tries to be at the front. I think it's because everyone wants to be that person like, me, I know the right answer, right? So everyone tries to, and I'm no exception. But so we're all trying to get up to the front, and that's what really helps is to be early, just in general, also so that people aren't stepping on them, just so that you're not going around, at least for me, like as a totally blind person, touching everyone, trying to find an empty spot, right? That really bothers me. So getting there early is really, really key. And if there is a seating chart, right? And I know for me, there were seating charts, you should talk to the professor, either send them an email or, do something, because otherwise you're going to sit in somebody else's seat and then you're going to move and you're going to sit in somebody else's seat and it's just going to keep going. So instead of doing that, just literally spend some time, email the professor and say, hey, I'm blind. I know you have a seating chart. Can you help me with this? And this also applies to now, right? If you're in college and you feel like you're going to have some kind of accommodation, the professor has no clue that you're blind, right? Especially now. they might have known before because you're walking with a guide dog, but especially now, they have no idea that there's a blind student in the class, that there's somebody watching their lectures who can't see everything that they're doing. So if there is something, it's very, very important that you advocate right away and say, hey, I need this help, because otherwise they're not going to notice you and you're going to get left behind. And, there might be some resentment for that professor or whatever, but it's not their fault. They didn't know. So it's just a little side note that I thought of, because
100%.
I've been having to send out some emails to my professors recently. And I know that not everyone will necessarily do that. So make sure that you do that if you do need those accommodations. But regardless, so I was always early as well. There was always, it's funny because I'm a finance concentration, and there's a lot of finance concentrations, but there's always one girl who's been in pretty much every one of my classes ever since I was a freshman, who was always early like me. She's like one of the earliest people there. And it's funny because at first, when we first started getting into one of my classes, last semester, Fenway would actually take me up to her seat for some reason. And he would go, like, just right there. And I'm like, see my spot. She goes, hello. And I was like, hey. She's like, do you sit here now? I was like, no. Because this was a class with assigned seats. I was like, I don't think I sit next to you. I sit next to, some other girl. And she goes, yeah, you sit over there, I thought. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. And so whatever, right? We moved the next day, next week, whatever. We're coming in again. Fenway takes me back over to her seat, like clockwork, And I'm like, wow, man. And but yeah, she's always there early, and it's funny because I was scrolling through the list of Zoom participants. I got there about probably like 5-6 minutes early to the Zoom meeting that we were supposed to be in for one of my classes, and who do I see? Exact same person. So if you're early like us, you'll find other people who are always early as well. But that's just a little bit about the classroom. Now, college campuses are obviously very chaotic places. There's so many opportunities to socialize and to engage. And one of the things that I think is really key, especially now, is that you need to take the initiative and reach out to people. Because I didn't know this, but it turns out being a blind person and all this, it's kind of intimidating, right? People don't know who you are, especially if you're like Lorne. Like Lorne is intimidating because he's outspoken and, he'll tell you what he thinks. And it's not always, it might not always be what you want to hear. And I'm the same way. And I also tend to talk a lot in class, and I'll say well, actually, professor, can I say something for a second? And it's like, that's actually not true what you just said. And so, I'm that person. So I'll intimidate people in that way. And I'm sure Lauren is very much in a similar way where,
oh yeah,
like, professor, excuse me, and so that can be intimidating for people. And especially you're the only blind guy, right? They've probably never seen another person with a dog who walks in so confidently too. That's one thing that, that is, if you're a blind person who, like most of you, I'm sure, are blind people who do what they need to do. They take care of business. And the image that most people have of blind people is this fumbling person with a stick, as they say, who walks down the hall, doesn't know where they're going, who just needs help. Oh my God, they're helpless. Let me help them, right? And when they see somebody who's completely the opposite, right? Yes, they're blind. Yes, they might have a cane or they might have a dog, but they're not helpless. They're not just bumping into everything going, oops. No, they're going right to their seat. They're taking care of business. That intimidates people. So you might get some people like I've met some of my best friends who just come up to me and go, hey, I'm so-and-so. Nice to meet you. What's your name? You're in a couple of my classes. And it's like, oh, I'm Carlos. Nice to meet you, right? But for the most part, it doesn't happen. And a lot of people are intimidated. And a lot of people don't want to get to know you better, but they think that you're not going to be cool if you talk to them. And I know that that's how I was with Lorne, right? If it was up to me, I would have probably never approached him and said, hey, what's going on? Because he struck me as a very, very hardcore person. And I was kind of intimidated. So I'm sure Lorne has a little bit more to say about how he, approaches people and maybe some tips for the virtual environment that we're in now.
So, yeah, I'm not, I'm the type of person that will kind of like Carlos, where I'm always, oh yeah, this is not right. This is wrong. Or if I don't know something, I'll just, make a wise remark. And, sometimes people will find it funny. Others not so much, but it's really a mixed bag when it comes to, I guess, how people view you. But I was definitely the type of person that for the first say for the first week of school, I would sit in different areas and I would just sit with different random people and just start talking to them. And then
So you were
either
that guy who's like, "Hi, what's your name?"
no, actually, surprisingly, no. I would just go up. I'd sit right there and go, "Hey, I'm Lorne. How are you guys?" "Oh, I'm good. I'm so." And if they want to give me their name, great. If not, I don't really care at the end of the day, because obviously, if they don't want to tell me their name, well, we're off. We're off to a fantastic start. So I would always just throw it out there, and about 95% of the time they go, "Oh, I'm so and so. Oh, really nice to meet you." And and then you start talking to them, and a lot of the time they'd be like, "Oh, it's just that dude with the dog." And
Yep.
and they'd always go, "Hey, dude with the dog." I go, "Well, I've got a dog, but I've got so much more. Would you like to know about it?" And they go, "No, not really. Just want to know about the dog." So,
I've been familiar with that. Yeah. There's girls who I'm like, "Oh, they're interested in me," and it's like, "Oh no, we just want to know more about your dog."
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's one danger. Like I know people always say like, "Oh, dude, you must be so lucky because girls love to talk to you, love to touch your dog." I'm like, well, first, they can't touch my dog, so they get pretty upset about that. And second of all, they want to know about the dog, like you said, not me. So yeah, I just thought that was funny because there's definitely those cases where it's like, yeah, oh, you want to know about me too? No, just your dog. What's his name?
But see,
Who
I
cares
always love
about
it
your
because they
name?
go, "Oh my God, he's so beautiful." And I go, "Well, thank you. I try to keep my physique up all the time." And then, you get so many people where they go, "Oh, haha, you're so funny." Or other ones go, "You know, I was talking about the dog."
Ew,
And
no. Oh, those are some hardcore girls, man.
yeah. I was told that they're like, "Ew, no." And I go, "No, really, like my physique's great." And they go, "We don't want to know about your physique." I said, "Well, would you like to know about my regiment?" And then so finally they just got the hint, and they were like, "You know what? I don't even want to see your dog." Okay.
Yeah. No,
So
that's definitely happened to me where I'm like, she's so interested in me. And she's like just asking me questions about the dog. And I'm like, oh yeah, she is not interested in me. She's interested in the dog.
yeah.
So what does your dog do? What does he eat? Like it's practically interrogating. Oh, like what brand? I feed my dog. And it's like, okay, this is not like a dog conversation here. Like yeah, no, I actually that was hilarious one time. I did get like that whole thing where I said, what does he eat? Oh, well, he eats, I have a golden retriever at home. Okay, great. Yeah, and he eats Yukonuba. Is that like a good one or is that not good? Because like I like it, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is just interrogating me about the dog.
I
Yeah,
always love
so
that because when they go, "Oh, I really like that food," and I'll look at them going, "Why would you eat that?" And they go, "No, no, it's for the dog." I go, "Okay, so you don't really like it." "Well, no, I like the brand." And you just kind of throw them off completely, which is absolutely hilarious. Like I had one person go, "There's a really good deal at Loblaws." It's a Canadian chain of grocery stores, by the way, if you're not familiar with it. And they go, "There's a really good deal on like a 40-pound bag of Alpo. It's only $15." And I go, "Okay, but that's Alpo. Like, instead of feeding them 1 cup at a time, I'm gonna need to feed them like 4 cups because it's just
that's
not
like if you're
there."
eating at a nice restaurant, somebody goes, "There's a great deal on the McDonald's dollar menu."
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Big Macs for the price of one. It's like, oh.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was and they're like, "I feed my dog that all the time." And I go, "Well, I don't know how good my dog would actually work if I fed them Alpo the whole time."
Some
But
dogs work better on like worse food. I will say that.
yeah, I don't know if I'd really want to give a guide dog that though,
No, yeah.
especially with how they're going. Like because they're actually doing a job, I'd rather give them quality over quantity at that
Oh
point.
yeah. No, 100%. But I'm saying that there are some dogs that do better with like not good food. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, Lauren, I'm really curious to hear a little bit about your tips on, meeting more people in the virtual environment. Obviously, you can't do a lot of the traditional stuff. Like I've met a lot of my friends by just sitting next to people and going, "Hey, what's going on?" And a lot of people are like, "I'm Sam," and like, it's like, okay, cool, and that's it, right? And then obviously there are some great people who go, oh yeah, hi, I've been trying to meet you. What's your name? And it's like you just keep going back and forth, right? So, but obviously in the virtual environment, if you're taking classes on Zoom, you can't necessarily do that, right? Where you just turn to the person next to you and go, hey, what's your name? Um,
Yeah.
you can't do that. You might be in a couple clubs, like I'm in a couple of clubs, but still, it's this whole same principle where you're on an entire Zoom meeting, so you can't pull somebody aside and talk to them in the same way that you would if you were in a room with a bunch of people and you meet one person and you're like, I want to get to know them more than I want to get up to know all these myriad of other people here. So how do you, do you have any suggestions? Obviously, either when you are in a Zoom meeting like this one, or maybe you're not. Maybe you're just at home and you used to go out to bars and meet people, but now you can't do that.
Yeah. So like, I will be starting back into college next week, and I'm already kind of in part of the mode on trying to find out who's going to be in my classes and try to be able to contact them, because a lot of the time, especially if I'm in a Zoom meeting, like say for example work or some of the outside clubs that I'm doing, I'll actually try to figure out and try to single out people and just talk to them, maybe
Yes.
on a private meeting, as you put it, or some other platform, and see if I can find out people like that. I'll also go to like websites like meetup.com, where it's not looking for hooking up or anything. It's just for different types of clubs and finding out and meeting people. Um, Algonquin
Now,
also has a like a student association website where they have all the different clubs and when they meet online, and I feel that that's definitely a good way to try to get to meet some more people as well.
now I think this is the thing that, I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure that I can speak for other people here as well. That's the most intimidating part, is to reach out to people, right? Like you said, there are some people, like for me, I'll hear some people and I'll hear the quality of their conversation and the quality of their word choice and how they speak, because I think that really tells a lot about a person, right? Not
Yeah.
necessarily how like pretty or not pretty they are or anything like that. It's just a person about who they are, right? Like you hear Lorne speak, you can tell that he's a confident guy. He's not a bad person. Versus you might hear somebody else's name I will not drop in here, but I'm talking about Lorne, and you hear them speak, and you're like, I don't ever want to meet that person, right? And so I get what you're saying, but I think the most difficult part of that is to single them out and actually reach out to them. Is that like a concern of yours? I mean, how do you deal with that? You just go ahead and do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do
Again,
you open it up? How do you open it up and go, hey, my name's Lorne, what's yours? Or how do you do it?
so like I've done online schooling before through Algonquin. And what I've done is I would send them just an email through their school email and go, hey, I really liked the comment that you stated during this class, or I really liked what you said about this, and try to make up a dialogue. And either they're going to respond back to you or they're just not going to. And realistically, you're going to get the same answer on if you're going to have a proper dialogue with them either way. So, you know,
Yeah.
in class they may just shut you down, and the way that they'll shut you down over email is they just won't respond to you, and that's totally
Yeah.
fine, because if you don't try it you'll never know. And it's not so much the ones that you have to that are super vocal. It's usually the ones that don't say anything, and you can't really figure out those types of people, because I've met some very, very intelligent people that I'm really good friends with, but in class, they wouldn't say a word because they
Of
were either
course.
too nervous or they just,
Or
for
they just
whatever
don't have
reason, they
anything to
didn't
say.
want. Exactly. So they're like, well, I just want to get it over and done with. And there's a lot of those people that are just, really cool types of people that when you're
Exactly. Yeah.
out of
I'm
the
one of
whole
them.
social setting, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Just glossing over. And so it's really difficult to do that, and that's why you kind of have to look at more of the discussion boards, or if the rest of the class can see what they're submitting, and really kind of pinpointing those types of people and singling them out and just sending a simple, hey, how are you, it's I'm in your class and I just really like your work style, or whatever, and just try to figure something positive to say to them to really get that dialogue started.
So just literally, and I'm asking because obviously this is like the first time I've done it. And it's like you mentioned it, right? It's so easy when you're in person because it doesn't really make that big of a difference because you're not wasting any of their time or anything like that. But then again, an email doesn't waste anybody's time either. But so you're just saying, just walk up to them and say, hey, or not walk up to them, obviously. Email them with something like. Now that I think about it, actually, I've had a couple friends who literally talk to me like that, who go, hey, my name is XYZ, and I really liked what you said in class. You seem like a really smart person, and it's like, oh, thank you. And yeah, that's actually a really good point because I've actually, now that I think about it, I've had a lot of those positive interactions. I had, Lauren, you put me down in the last couple of podcasts because I talked about my coffee thing, right? And I met a couple of friends that way where they were like, oh yeah, I'm really into coffee too. Like, do you brew yours at, what do you think? Do you brew it at 193 or 197? I'm like, well, I like to keep it at this temperature, but my brewer usually tries to brew it about 195. It's offered. So I have met people like that. And that's the thing about being a quirky person. If you're a quirky person like I am, who has those kinds of things, maybe you're interested in, I don't know, anything, right? I was going to say cars, but I'm interested in cars. I don't want to say that not all blind people would be interested in cars, but like, you get what I'm saying, right? You have some kind of weird interest that everyone else is like, oh my God, this guy's weird. You'll find somebody else who's interested in them. And here's the thing, okay? And this is the advice I want to give.
Well, it's kind of like blind people talking to each other about what type of tips they like. Right away, as soon as you go, well, I like the pencil tip. Well, no, I'm more into the ball
crazy.
tip.
He likes the pencil tip.
No, I actually like the roller ball, or the the roller
the marshmallow tip.
Yeah,
I like the ball tip.
The roller, but yeah, like if you tried to say that to someone that didn't have a visual impairment or that didn't operate a cane, they'd look at you.
They'd probably get a little weirded out. Like, I
exactly.
like ball tips. What about you?
Exactly.
Like,
I don't think this is appropriate, but
right.
It's like, but just having that type of thing. But if you can find that group of people that you really, that you're, I guess, part of and you feel comfortable with, then everything just falls into place.
Yes. Okay. That's really great advice, Lorne. I think that every one of us should apply it. And remember, this is the one thing that I want to give, because I think that I operated a lot of my life in this way when I was younger. Is don't be afraid to reach out, because think about this. Right? It's like a game. I'm taking a class on game theory, and I'm not talking about game as in like we're playing video games, more as in like a model. Right? If you're both too afraid to reach out to each other, then you guys will never do it. And maybe that could have been an immense friendship. Maybe you two could partner up and, become the next billionaires who invent some crazy stuff, right? Who knows? There always has to be one person who takes the initiative. And if it's not them, there's I watch a lot of MMA fighting. And one of the things I always say is don't leave it in the hands of the judges, right? Because you can fight it out to a decision and then the judges say like, this guy scored more, whatever, because of X, Y, Z, right? And people go, oh, well, I think I won because I did this. You know what? If you were that good, you would have knocked him out. You wouldn't have left it in the hands of the judges. And that's kind of how I think about it. Don't leave it in the hands of the judges. Don't leave it in somebody else's hands. And if you really want to get to know that person, reach out to them and say, hey, my name's John. Nice to meet you. I really enjoyed what XYZ, what you said. Let's get, we should chat sometime. Beautiful. Right? So that's kind of a little bit about, in general, quarantine / regular college life. But now let's pivot on to a little bit more. Let's talk about nightlife. Lauren, you and I are both.
So just to really go back, kind of just one quick thing about when you were saying,
okay,
if you don't think that someone that you're wanting to talk to even wants to talk to you, then what, going up to them and reaching out to them, if they say no, you're at the exact same spot that you started.
Right. They're not. It's not like they're gonna post it on Facebook and go, "Oh my God, look what Lorne sent me!" Like he's over here trying to be my friend. Someone's gonna do that.
Exactly. So at least with that.
And if they do, you don't want to hang out with them anyways. I mean, let's be real.
Well, yeah, exactly, right. So if you're worried about, well, I don't know how they'll react. The only way that you'll know how they react is by doing it. Yeah. And just go out and ask them. And the worst they're gonna tell you is but then you're really not out anything.
Most people will not say no, they just won't respond.
Well, exactly. And then at least you can go, okay, well, I figured that they wouldn't, but who really knows?
It's worth a shot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The only shots you miss are the ones you didn't take. I think Wayne Gretzky said that. And it's very true. And the thing about taking a shot is to go into it with exactly those expectations, right? Like none, right? Because you don't know. Maybe maybe they won't respond to you, and who cares, right? There's so many other people that you could reach out to who probably will, or maybe they'll become your best friend, right? And that's like the new friendship. And if you didn't reach out, you wouldn't have actually gotten that friendship from them. So
100%.
yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that again, because I think that too often, at least the way I used to live my life, is to leave it in the hands of the judges per se, right? It's like, well, if this is meant to happen to me, then it will. And that's just, there's a saying that, I don't know if I should tell this joke, Lauren. Do you think I should tell the joke? Do we have time? Or should we just move on?
Go for it. Nope. Keep
Okay,
going.
yeah. So there's a joke that a guy is in real hard debts, and he's trying to get his, this isn't my joke, by the way. I read it online. I don't want anybody to say that I'm taking credit for it. But yeah, there's, he's in really big debts, and he sits there and he starts praying to God. He goes, God, please just let me win the lottery. And, goes on with his life. Next day, obviously didn't win the lottery. Comes back. He goes, God, just please let me win the lottery. I'm in huge debt. The mob's going to break my legs. And, he still doesn't win. Next day he goes, please, God, I'm begging you, play the lottery. Boom, lightning crashes, and all he hears is a voice goes, well, why don't you buy a ticket? So, like that's kind of how life is too, right? Like, if you're sitting here going, man, I don't have any friends, or I don't know anybody, yada yada, right? Then buy a ticket. Go out there. Maybe it's because you don't talk to people. Like, oh, I'm just not cool. No one reaches out to me. No one's gonna reach out to you, because unless you're like some kind of pop star that everyone wants to get to know because they want to suck off you, people aren't going to do that, right? Most people aren't going to do that. And if you really want to start something, then you have to take it upon yourself, take it into your hands. So I'll just digress from that, because I feel like we've been going on and on about that. Do you have any other comments on that, Lauren?
Nope.
Okay.
We're good.
So let's talk a little bit about Nightlife. Like I said, I'm very familiar with it. I'm sure Lauren is too. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was like going out, and especially, maybe not as frequent now, but I'm hoping that this will return to normal within the next 6, maybe 8 months. And going out to like parties / bars / anywhere where there's loud music and there's people who are not in control of their 5 senses per se. So one of the things that I like to do, if you're a dog owner, I will say this, and I think this is, Lauren would concur with me on this. Don't take your dog. It's just not a good environment from them. Like, I know I took Fenway with me once, and it just wasn't great for him. Like, he was just sitting there. He wasn't sleeping because he couldn't. The music was loud. His hearing is much more acute. So I'm sure that for him it was like blasting, even though it was like not too loud. And he just couldn't sleep because there were people just walking by constantly, and they didn't know where they were going, and they were wearing those sharp high heels, and like, oh my God, Lucy, I haven't seen you forever. And they don't know where they're walking, right? So, and there's some dude, what's up, man? It's like they don't even know where they're walking. So it's not a good environment for them, and a cane is perfectly well. Do you have anything to add on that, Lauren?
No, not really. It's pretty much 100% spot on.
Yes. And then second thing I want to say is always find yourself a friend to go with. Friends, like at least one, if not like a group or whatever. But whenever I would go, because I'll tell you this, when I first got to campus, I obviously didn't have any friends. I didn't know anybody, right? But I actually just walked out by myself to these parties and just tried to go in. And I ended up meeting a group of people that I fell in with, and it was great. I'm good friends with a lot of those guys now. And so the way you do that is just, take it in your hands. Like I'll say it again, right? Just take it in your hands and go out, and don't be afraid to participate in the rest of the nightlife scene and everything else. But as cool as it might be to take your dog out, and you might get girls going, oh my God, he's so cute, that's also not good, because they're going to get pretty angry with you, especially if they're drunk, when you tell them that you can't touch him. And please don't let them touch him just because you think like, oh man, how could I say no? Don't do that. Okay. Like I'll tell you from experience, it's not worth it.
Well, just remember they can't touch him if he's not there.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
So
no, well, then I've heard people go, I remember one time this girl was so drunk. She goes, where's your dog? And I was like, oh, he's not here. He's back home. He got the day off. She goes, you're not as interesting without your dog. And I was like,
nice.
I was like, well, you're not interesting at all. So go away. So yeah, there's definitely that. But like realistically, guys, don't take your dogs out, man. It's just not good for them. You don't know what'll happen. I remember, some bad things happen to the dogs when they're out and about, and you don't even know, right? Somebody could feed them a chicken wing, and you're not even, it's so loud, it's not like you're going to hear them crunching the wing down. So just make sure that they stay home, and that you always take a friend with you. I know I learned that a little bit from Lorne, and I started falling in with a couple of good guys, and that really helps because they can help you around. It's a very loud environment, and you don't know where you are, and you might step in something you don't want to step into, or you might want to find the door quickly if there is something that goes down. So just go with a group of friends and meet. I'm sure that if you're in college, you can probably meet them somewhere, but I didn't know about this meetup thing. I'm sure you can meet them there as well. So, Lauren, do you have any other advice for partying and nightlife in general?
Yeah. So
From your long experience.
from my long experience, yeah. No, yeah. So I really like to go with people is great if you want to go and have, just a fun time and you're just wanting to kind of kick back, relax, and just enjoy it. Now, if you really want to get to know people, or you want to really kind of get yourself out there, I would highly suggest not to necessarily go with someone. And the reason is that if you go into an area that really no one knows you, you can really try to, I guess, try different approaches to things, right? So you may go from one group of people to another group of people, and the first group, just kind of shrugs you off. So then, for the next group, okay, well, I can try this way. And you can really try different ways of approaching people and kind of hone your skills if you want to do that. Now, you're obviously going to have some downsides. Like you said, if something goes down, then you may find yourself into some issues, but you can also have the ability of just trying to be yourself and really get to know people on a more personal basis, going to a party or to a get together by yourself. And then you don't really have to worry, because even when you go with people, at some point or another, you almost feel like you're having to, I guess, almost be like a host or kind of do what they want to do. And you can get really swept up into only sticking with your little clique or your little group and not being able to really get outside of that group of people and either introduce yourself to more people, or to, there may be someone in there that you really want to get to know. And being in a group of people, you can't all necessarily do that all the time.
Yeah, no, that's great advice, Lauren. I think that's true. It all really depends on your goals, right? If you're just trying to go out and enjoy yourself and just hang out with the group already, then yeah, definitely go with your buddies from class or from wherever, right? The club you met, you were in the XYZ club and you met them, or you're in a fraternity, whatever, right? But yeah, there's definitely a way to go out and meet people. And it also really, like, this is one thing that I learned, and it's so strange for people like me who are totally blind and don't see themselves, but the way you feel really reflects in how you have your body position and like the aura that you give off, right? So if you feel like nervous and, oh, no one wants to talk to me, yeah, right? Then you're giving off an aura like, I don't want to talk to that guy. He seems kind of closed off, like he's he's hunching his shoulders, and he doesn't, he seems like he's kind of scared to be here. No one's going to approach you. They're going to go to another person who looks like they're chill and they're just relaxed and waiting for somebody to talk to them, right? So always keep that in mind. Try to smile. Try to like not, at least if you are tense or whatever, try to at least relax and tell yourself that everything will go well, and don't be so nervous, because that is something that does reflect. Like most people, when they see it, they know what they look like because they've seen themselves in the mirror and they know how their body positioning is and all this stuff. But like for us, I didn't realize that's what was happening. And people would tell me like, well, I never talked to you because you just seemed like you gave off this like, don't with me aura, And I was like, oh yeah, I didn't realize that I was giving off that aura. And it's like, yeah, it's kind of intimidating. And I was like, well, that's not my intent at all. So just remember that whenever you're trying to meet people and talk to people is, I think the research shows that a smile actually makes you feel better rather than the other way around. Like, yes, you smile when you feel better, but from what I understand, smiles by themselves can actually make you feel better. So like, even if you're just angry and you're mad that day because whatever didn't go, just sit there, don't have that idiotic smile, like showing all the teeth and everything, right? But like, just try to smile and you'll find like, hey, turning out a lot better than I expected. So
yeah.
Yeah, drop some knowledge on us, Lorne.
No, again, just obviously not everyone is going to be extremely extroverted, right? It's just not going to always happen. But the more extroverted you are, obviously the more people you're going to meet, and the more that your circle is going to go and grow. But if you go to an area or to a party that no one knows you, what do you have to lose? No
Yeah,
one's, well,
100%.
people will absolutely judge you, but they won't necessarily see
They
you
might not even
again.
remember that they
Or
judged you.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Because I'm sure most people don't go to parties just to stay sober. So,
Right.
knowing
Some
what they did,
liquid
or
flowing.
who they met, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, liquid courage. That's right. So
Dutch courage.
yeah, yes. So
Just
that's
don't be
why.
like who was it? Andrew Johnson that drank so much that he like tried to give his inauguration speech. Yeah, he had like
Well,
3 shots right before the speech.
yeah. So just try different areas, or even go to like different meetings that you may not be interested in. But
Hmm.
with every meeting that you go to, there's always different people, and you may not be interested necessarily in the topic. But if you're really wanting and you're really yearning to meet people, that'll definitely help you, because you're going to get
Yes.
more groups of people that you would have never normally went with. And yeah, so if one person likes something and you don't, well, whoop you do. But they may like 5, 6, 7 other things that you do, and then you
Yes.
you definitely made a great friend. And you don't have to go back to those meetings anymore, or you don't have to go up to the Zoom chats anymore if it doesn't work out. But that's just one other avenue you can explore.
If anything, it's easier now if you or they don't like you to avoid you. Just don't reply to them. If you find like, hey, I used to think this person was cool, and then you don't like them, just don't reply to them. I mean, I would be like cool and be like, hey, look, but that's also blunt. Like, I don't. A lot of people say like, oh, that's mean, because I would just say like, hey, XYZ of you really doesn't. I don't like that, and most people would
Yeah.
just avoid you. But and don't be upset if people avoid you, man. Like, it is what it is. There's so many people out there that to get hung up on one person for whatever reason, like, oh, I thought they were so cool, and then they, avoided me for it. Who cares? Go
Well,
meet somebody else.
they're not worth your time then.
No, yeah, exactly. Like, don't invest if you're there's so many people out there. It's like getting mad when you've got 100 pennies and you dropped one. Like, oh, I dropped a penny. Like, who cares? Just keep going. It's not that big a deal. So, Lorne, do you have anything else to add? We can start wrapping it up here.
No, I think that's pretty much it. Again, just be yourself, and don't worry about necessarily people not liking you, because out of those
Someone will
hundred
always
penny,
not like you.
yeah, out
I
of those
found that
hundred
out this
penny,
week.
out of those 100 pennies, you'll get at least 10 that will like you, at least. And
Well, unless you're Lorne.
or well,
Might
then
be
you get
like 3
five.
then.
Then you get
Right.
5. Hey, come on, no, but yeah. So every one person that says no just makes more room for another person to say yes.
Yeah. So,
That's
to
that's the way I see it.
so to recap, we talked a little bit about how to, connect with people, especially over Zoom and over through the virtual environment, but also once we get back to normal, hopefully. We also talked a bit about nightlife and the situations there, and how once it gets back to normal, eventually, you can have the most success. We hope you enjoyed this episode. I know that we enjoyed talking about these situations, and I know that it's one of those things that I struggled with a lot when I was younger, and so definitely a big one to take people and talk a little bit about.
Absolutely. So if you want to weigh in, please email us at blindbanter@gmail.com. We're the blind banter, sorry, at Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. We're all on there. We still don't have anything in regards to the Lime video contest as of yet. We're hoping maybe next week. So as soon as we know something, we'll tweet it, we'll Instagram it, Facebook it, all that other jazz. And then hopefully get you guys to vote for us, because we'd love to get this out to more people, because I know that we do have some people that are already listening, but we'd always like to get more. So we're absolutely
Yes.
looking for your support. But until next time, thanks, Carlos, and you guys stay safe.
Thank you.